Very pleased now to be joined by the one, the only, the legendary, the internationally famous. They know him on the space station, is what I've been told. From the Turf Show Times universe, it is Blaine Grisak. Blaine, I was very nervous to try your last name for the first time in a recorded landscape. Did I land the plane?
You landed it. It's perfect. Yes. Thanks
Are
for
you
having
sure?
me.
You can be honest. If I was only like 85% accurate, I mean,
Oh,
people.
it's perfect 100%. A+.
Okay. So Kenny Arthur set this conversation up, my good friend, and your good friend, obviously, because I said, Kenny, I want to talk about the Rams. He said, well, let me put you in touch with Blaine. The Dallas Cowboys are hosting the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday afternoon. Can you first dispel, because Kenny's not a good example of this, the notion that there are no fans of the Los Angeles Rams?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a growing fan base. It's been kind of tough the first 7 weeks of the season. Our first couple of home games have been against, you got the 49ers. That's a fan base that travels extremely well. You have the Steelers. That's obviously a fan base that travels extremely well. So yeah, it's been kind of a tough go there at SoFi Stadium for the first 7 weeks of the season. But it's a fan base that's slowly growing. Unfortunately, the Super Bowl appearances help, but yeah, the last year and a half or so, not as positive, obviously.
Well, I think that Dallas Cowboys fans would still trade lives with you, to be honest, because multiple Super Bowl appearances, multiple Super Bowl wins as a team based in different cities since the Dallas Cowboys last even appeared in an NFC Championship game, just for perspective on the drought that Dallas is facing. But obviously, everybody hopes that changes this season. And when you started that answer, I thought you were going to, you said kind of tough times for the Rams. Look, I think a lot of people thought the Rams were going to be really bad this season. Obviously, there was like 1,000 rookies on the team at the beginning of training camp. It feels like it's been a plucky story. Certainly not the Rams of the last, 5-6 years, but a team delivering well over expectations, I would say, on a national level at least.
Yeah, for sure on a national level, like you said, they came into the season with not really high expectations from the national media perspective. I never really fully bought into this idea that they were tanking necessarily. I think a lot of people really undersold Sean McVay and his ability as a head coach. He came in. There were the rumors, obviously, of him possibly stepping away, possibly retiring, going to the broadcast media. But he came back re-energized and ready to teach a young team. And this team isn't ready to really, I think, compete with the upper echelon teams in the league. But as kind of we saw against the 49ers and the Eagles, this is a team they're going to give you everything they have and be a little feisty. And it may not be enough to get the job done, but they're gonna make you work for it. So there's a lot of fun young pieces on this team. You have Puka Nacua, Steve Avila, Byron Young on defense. They're definitely trying to find a young core that they can kind of start building around as we head into 2024 and 2025, when maybe you look to make one final championship push with Aaron Donald and Matthew Stafford.
Steve Avila was a name that a lot of Cowboys fans loved in the draft process. Dallas had for a while a bit of a hole at left guard. Tyler Smith has kind of answered that call, thankfully. But a lot of people, kind of saw a world where he could have been the answer. You mentioned Puka Nacua. That's kind of like the story, it feels like. I mean, that he's the low-hanging fruit. Like, everybody's kind of talked about Stafford and Cup and Donald a billion different times, and Puka is this fun, electrifying, new personality, new name. And it just feels like, there are a lot of things like this that fizzle and fade, cute little stories like that. But Puka has some staying power. Like, this is a real thing at this point. It's more than just, the first month of the season, we all had a good time. Puka Nacua is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, he's been absolutely incredible. Came into training camp, and he picked up things really quickly. And the coaching staff and other players on the team raved about him all summer. I kind of had some skepticism kind of going into the year, because as far as like how much he'd be involved in the offense. But yeah, he's come in right away and contributed. He's breaking rookie records, it seems like, every single week. Last year they signed Allen Robinson to a big money contract, and it didn't really work after trading away Robert Woods to the Tennessee Titans. So they were really missing that number 2 wide receiver role outside of Kupp. And Puka Nacua came right in and has done some of the things Robert Woods would do, especially in the run game. He's been absolutely incredible in the run game as a blocker. Allows him to kind of stay in that 11 personnel and not have to take a wide receiver off to put a tight end on just for running situations. So he's been very effective as a blocker. And yeah, like I said, doing some of the Robert Woods things that the Rams kind of missed over the last year or so. And they're doing some fun things just strictly in a Puka Nacua role as well. He's kind of doing his own unique things, but he's stepped up, and The Rams need somebody outside of Cooper Kupp in this offense to really step up, and he's done that.
It feels like, I mean, Kyron Williams obviously on injured reserve right now, but like that's, I don't know, rewind the clock 6 months. Nobody, certainly to kind of go back to the national thing, nationally knew those names, and nobody saw that they would be such heavy lifters for the Rams through the first 6 weeks of the season or whatever it was. And obviously, Kyron's been a fun story. We'll see what happens when he gets back. I'm going to miss this game, certainly. But the Rams offense is definitely what concerns me. But the Cowboys defense is obviously their better overall operation. Is the Rams offense at a point in this kind of surprising everyone to this, sort of part of the season? Is it at a place where you would trust it even against a Dallas defense that I imagine you still respect to some degree, given that, Dallas obviously had a tough outing against San Francisco, but for the most part, their defense has been solid all season?
Yeah, I mean, I do trust the Rams offense in a sense that they have all this star power. Like the potential is there, but for whatever reason, they just can't put it together for 60 minutes. They have a really strong first half against the 49ers. They're tied at halftime, and then they score, I think, 7 points in the second, or maybe 6 points in the second half. It wasn't a good second half outing. And then against the Eagles, same thing. They go lights out in the first half, and then they get completely shut out in the second half. They got shut out in the fourth quarter last week, and it's just a little bit very inconsistent, I guess. And so I think there's definitely some opportunity here for I can see the Rams maybe starting strong, but kind of maybe some halftime adjustments or whatever. Dan Quinn and that Dallas defense starting to slow them down a little bit.
So I agree with you completely, and I'm really interested to watch because the Rams, by whatever advanced metric you look at, or even just kind of conventional metrics, stack up among the best offenses in the NFL. And certainly Dallas on defense is going to be, in for a bit of a challenge. But the other side of the game is a little bit of a story of two kind of wandering sides of the ball. The Rams defense not exactly been up to snuff so far this season. The Dallas offense is really struggling. Obviously, Mike McCarthy's been under a lot of fire for that. Dak Prescott is never immune to criticism. That's just kind of life. What is the Rams defense like? I mean, because the Cowboys are really struggling to kind of eke out points right now, and I think everybody's looking for a get right opportunity. But I don't know that this presents that.
Yeah, I don't know if the Rams defense is that opportunity either. They definitely they're a very young group. They'll have their mental lapses just like they did in the fourth quarter. Yet on Sunday against the Steelers, they had the best defense in the NFL per EPA in the first 3 quarters of that game, and then the fourth quarter they by far had the absolute worst defense in the NFL in the fourth quarter per EPA. So they're very up and down. You kind of have to catch them in a mental lapse or in a lapse of focus. But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Byron Young is playing really well off the edge. I'm not sure where he's at right now, but at least up until last week, he had led all rookies in pressures going into last week. Aaron Donald is obviously Aaron Donald. So Kobe Turner is playing really well on that defensive line as well. Jonah Williams has been pretty good in the run game. The Steelers kind of did a pretty good job managing him though. So there are some players there, but it's one of those things you do have to catch him in a mental lapse and kind of hit them with the explosives during those times to take advantage.
So we're recording this on Tuesday, and this drops on Thursday. I was telling you that before we started. And about, I don't know, like 2 or 3 hours before we started recording, the Rams released Brett Maher in real time. And so, I don't know that that's surprising to anybody. Obviously, Cowboys fans know Brett Maher. He was wonderful for them all of last regular season and had the meltdown in the playoffs that everybody saw. From afar, it felt like Brett was all right this season. Did you feel like that was a bit of an overreaction to move on? Or was it, kind of well understood among the fan base? Like, yeah, it was time to kind of move on. Brett just wasn't it.
Yeah, so I think the fan base definitely wanted him gone. But as far as my personal opinion, I kind of think it was a little bit of an overreaction. So like he wasn't good from outside 50. He was one for 5 from one for his last 5 from outside 50 yards. Had a few big misses against the Colts that kind of let them kind of back in that game, and then really his miss against the Steelers on Sunday. Had a chance to go by 2 scores, and then they didn't, and the Steelers marched down the field and tied the game on the very next possession. So definitely tough, but at the same time, he was 14 for 16 inside of 50 yards. The Rams had a few opportunities to potentially where you would consider them go situations, I guess, go for situations on 4th down, where maybe you're not having to settle for so many 50-yard field goals. So I think it's one of those things for 2 things to be true at the same time, where yes, Brett Maher needed to be a lot better, but at the same time, like, if you're a good offense, you shouldn't be settling for 50-plus yard field goals all the time either.
Yeah, that's so strange given that that was kind of his specialty, was the dude from downtown, at least again during his 2 seasons in Dallas that were separated by a stint in New Orleans. So, best to Brett Maher. I really felt for him last season, obviously with the way things ended in the playoffs and whatnot. So we know the superstars on the Rams, and that's kind of the story of who the team is and how somebody like Puka Nacua shows up and develops. But if the Cowboys are to lose this game, who's the player, the non-superstar? I know this is a weird question, but that on Monday morning we're sitting here saying, you know what, we should have seen that. I mean, this dude was kind of hiding in plain sight. He wasn't, Cooper Kupp, but I mean, he was an obvious enough player that we should have understood that he was going to present a big problem, and he ultimately did. Who is that guy?
I think the first guy you have to look at is Ahkello Witherspoon. Kind of an underrated signing for the Rams at cornerback in the offseason. It was really one of the only free agent signings that they made, and he's been absolutely stellar this season. Absolutely shutting down teams number one wide receivers. I think he's in the top 10 in passer rating allowed. He's been really good this season. I'm sure he'll be on CeeDee Lamb quite a bit. I probably look at Ernest Jones too. He's kind of been a little up and down this year, but at linebacker he's also been really stellar.
That's a good name, certainly, and anybody who's shadowing CeeDee Lamb is obviously of high importance for the Cowboys. The Matthew Stafford of it all, I think a lot of people thought, mid last season that Stafford was way past washed, and I think everybody was kind of really ready to move on from that chapter of what the Rams are. Been one of the best players on the team. I mean, he's the quarterback, so that's obviously an important, kind of factor, but it's been kind of nice to see him find the fountain of youth a little bit.
Yeah, he's been absolutely stellar this season. Like you said, people were saying he was washed up coming in this year, and it seems like every single week he's making these absolutely elite throws that you only see guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and the Justin Herberts of the world make week in, week out. And I would like to see a little bit more consistency, I think, from Stafford, or maybe the Rams giving him some easier throws. But yeah, it's the arm talent is clearly still there when it comes to Stafford.
So I'm curious, and something I always kind of like to find out because, we all kind of tend to live in the bubble of our own team and are so hyper focused on them. What are your overall expectations or ideas or assessments of the Cowboys? I mean, do you view this as a big week for the Rams? Do you view this as a difficult game? Do you view this as a game they're unlikely to win? Do you view this as an easy opportunity for them? Because, the Cowboys obviously have a lot of different levels of attention on them. And so it's understandable for you to feel any one of those ways.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity here. That the Cowboys, it seems like we saw them when they lost to the Cardinals. They have these
Right.
like games where they can potentially just not show up. So I think there's an opportunity here for the Rams to maybe come out with a surprise win. Although I wouldn't say that's likely. The Cowboys are clearly the more talented team. I think that pass rush with Micah Parsons is going to cause issues, especially if you can force the Rams into a drop back passing game, which is not where they need to be running their offense, just because. Their left tackle Eric Jackson is not going to be able to hold up in those sort of situations. Just so yeah, I think there's an opportunity here. I like I said, I don't think it's likely, but I think could be a good game for sure.
And what I imagine Micah Parsons is the Cowboys thing that frightens you the most. But so the non-Micah thing, what would it be? Is it Dak? Is it Mike McCarthy? Is it Dan Quinn? I mean, like what is what's causing you to lose the most sleep this week that isn't Micah Parsons?
Probably Tony Pollard and that running back duo that they have. Yeah, I think if the Cowboys, the Rams have some inexperienced edge rushers. Like Byron Young, he has been good, but he's still a rookie that needs to be a little better at times containing the edge. Michael Hoyt, he's not your traditional edge rusher. He's much better as more of a 3 or 5 technique than he is out as an edge rusher. They transitioned him out to edge last year simply because they had nobody else to play that position, so that they moved him there and it just kind of stuck. So and he can get caught out of position sometimes. So I think if you can kind of get the Rams moving side to side, and Tony Pollard, he has the speed to be able to do it. I think he could have a big game on the ground, and then if the Cowboys can get CeeDee Lamb matched up with Darian Kendrick, I think that's a mismatch, huge mismatch as well.
I think a lot of Cowboys fans very interested to hear that, given that Pollard's been a bit disappointing so far this season. He's put the ball on the ground a couple of times, and that's really upset some people. Very cool. Well, you reserve the right to change this, obviously, because we're recording Tuesday, and injury reports and things like that will happen as the week goes along. Right now, the Cowboys are 6-point favorites. If you had to pick it, it sounds like you're leaning Dallas, but I certainly don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, I'd be leading the Cowboys right now. I'd probably go somewhere around probably 24-20, 27-20, something like that. I think it's gonna be close first half or so, and then the Cowboys kind of pull away there in the second half.
Okay. And are the Rams a playoff team? Because I think I'm ready to say yes.
Um, I I think they're right on the edge. I kind of see them at 9-8 right now, and I don't know if 9-8 is going to be good enough to get into the playoffs. But I can see them sneaking into that 7th seed. I'm crossing my fingers for that Detroit Lions Los Angeles Rams wild card round matchup. I think that'd be a lot of fun and some fun storylines with that one. Obviously, if that were to happen, so I'm crossing my fingers for that one. But we'll see.
I hadn't even thought about that as a potential. Obviously, everybody's so in on the Lions, but that would be incredible. I don't know what I think I'd root for the Lions. I mean, I get a little bit overwhelmed with all the Lions love. It's kind of, whatever. I'm sure that you're fine with it because it benefited the Rams, greatly. But I think I'd root for the Lions. So I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's like with Rams fans too. Like their second team is the Lions, just because the Rams fan base still absolutely loves Jared Goff. So they love to see him succeed. So that'd be a fun matchup.
Very cool. Blaine Grisak. Again, I was super nervous again. I hope people don't get that nervous when they say my last name. But who are your other favorite teams? So we can maybe root for you to have some success in that sense, because it's not going to be on Sunday, obviously.
So you're not gonna like this answer, but I lived in Philadelphia for about 8 years.
Oh,
so
geez,
I kind of have there's a sweet spot in my heart for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the AFC, I absolutely love what Mike McDaniel is doing with the Dolphins. So they're such a fun team to watch.
Blaine, I mean, seriously, you were cruising, you know what I mean, for a while, but that was,
right.
I was thinking like other sports. I had no idea you were going to bring up the Eagles of all teams. So that wasn't cool.
Too, yeah. I mean, we can go like baseball. I got the Padres, basketball, Sixers, and then hockey. I'd probably have to side of the St. Louis Blues.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that I'm not a Dallas Stars fan, but that I'm sure that, that you upset some people right there. So, rough ending, but that's okay. Maybe somebody tapped out, before we got to that part of the podcast.
Yeah, maybe.
Blaine, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the week, but I hope you're a little bit sports sad on Sunday afternoon.
Thanks for having me, RJ. I appreciate it.